Welcome to Free Advice Friday. My name is Keri Barnum for New Shelves Books, and we are here to talk about the business of being an author. Marketing, publishing, everything in between. We have a couple of questions that were emailed in to info@newshelves.com. And we, of course, will have questions live. And you can join us live any Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern by going to newshelves.com/FA. It is free to join, but you do have to register. So we're going to get started today with a question. Here we have a question from Manfred, and the question is, I'm working on my third book. Each previous one has dealt with my actual life experiences. I have again called on them for this next book. My problem is, what should be the emphasis of my book and how should I pitch it? And here's kind of the base of it. In the late 1970s, I worked on a unique project that was the first attempt to put all of Michigan's human service information on a computer, which at that time was a large mainframe computer. The federal government saw it as a national model and funded it, yet within Michigan's legislative process, it ran into some egos who tried to defeat it. The fact that after 3 years, the project was killed because our legislative champion lost a round of golf by 3 strokes to the vehement opponent of the project. On the human side, one of my coworkers turned out to be, quote, the worst serial killer in Michigan history, end quote, as described in the documentary that was done about him. I know serial killer stories sell, yet the project itself was noteworthy. How do I combine these two themes into something that could be marketed? I have to say that these could be combined. You kind of have, so to break it down into just broad strokes here, you have kind of someone in the 1970s who, or some people, groups who are just against the use of technology and computers for moving forward. We're certainly here right now with AI, and there's lots of opinions there. So I think it could be very popular, and you have that kind of topic to go on. You have a specific example, but that's the overarching theme. And then the second theme, of course, is kind of that true crime serial killer project. Um, could these be combined? Sure, they could. Maybe in the background of, these projects of technology advancing, there is a serial killer working. However, I think you would have to be pushing pretty hard and getting pretty creative to make those fit together. What I personally see two very separate projects. I see one that is focused on kind of the advancement of technology. Now, you could use this as a basis if you're going to write a thriller or something like that. I think it could work very well for kind of a vintage thriller when you're talking about um, the advancement of technology in government and in use in general. So I think you could certainly write about that. If you were writing about this just more as a nonfiction memoir, I think it would probably be a little bit harder to get full-length book and something that's exciting. But if you're fictionalizing it, I think it gives you leeway to maybe add in some more brown, some works, some more art. So that's probably what I would be consider doing. The serial killer story, and hopefully I don't get censored for saying that word. But the serial story, as we shall call it now, I think, of course, is very interesting because true crime is very popular. Now, some of the things that you have to consider is that when you're doing a story on something like true crime and you're doing something that's real, you have to be very careful to stick to known facts. Essentially, you have to be very careful about how you tell your story. I'm not a lawyer. I do not pretend to be, but I highly advise that if you are going to write nonfiction true crime on the serial killer that you did know, that you consider consulting a lawyer on that to make sure that you're not liable for different things. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be. I know like 3 words that make me sound smart. And one of them is go find a lawyer. That's a phrase, not a word, but we're going to use it anyway. So I do think you have to consider that. But even if you are taking the story and you're fictionalizing it, I've actually worked with an author who did take a real life serial person and who fictionalized it and used it in their story. They just so happened to be on this call today. And one of the things that we definitely had to be aware of and careful of is that when you're fictionalizing things, you're using a true story basis, but you're fictionalizing things and you're adding characters and all of that. Again, you may want to consult a lawyer. You want to make sure that you've got some great insurance in case anything ever comes of that. So I think you have to be careful with that idea, no matter how you use it, when you're using real people as a basis, how you use it. But I mean, I see that you could have a like mystery suspense story with the computer advancement, and you could have a nonfiction true crime story with the other one, and I think would be both popular. They're both pretty timely. I mean, true crime is taking off and has been popular for several years, but also computer advancement and how it's come. I could even see this kind of as a dual timeline of maybe, making somehow that tie into what's happening today. There's a lot of possibilities there. So which you do is completely up to you, but I do see them as separate projects. And I don't think I'd try to combine them. I think that it would not serve either storyline well, in my opinion. So hopefully that's some food for thought for you there. Okay, this next question is kind of a big one. Um, I have lots to say on this one. Yeah, and Bob is saying publishers are more worried than ever. And he's even been in meetings with lawyers himself, with something similar. So be prepared to address when that's sold, like the different concerns of, the legal team when you're drawing from real life and real inspiration. Certainly, I mean, it's certainly out there now. All right, this next one I'm going to keep a little anonymous. Let's see. So the overarching question here, what are the pros and cons of having a pre-order period when launching a book? So there are several pros and cons of, a pre-order, especially in today's changing marketplace. I'm going to go through, there are a series of questions and advice given from a publisher. I'm going to go through and I'm going to address all those and I'll share my thoughts along the way. So recently, this author had seen a webinar that was presented by the marketing team of the publisher that they're working with, and they discouraged a pre-order period. And the author felt like the slant or the feeling or the vibe was because it was based on their belief that authors lack marketing potential or strength. Um, I hate that that is the thought behind it, but often it is. A book going up on pre-order and doing absolutely nothing for no reason is kind of a waste of algorithm. It does not help you. There's really no point, right? But you all are smart authors, you're savvy authors, you're working hard for your success. And so if you're doing a pre-order and you have purpose behind it, there are things that you're doing in the background, there's marketing you're doing, it can make so much sense. So I don't disagree that if you do a pre-order and you just put it up there, but you don't do anything with it, that it doesn't really help you. But I do disagree that there's nothing you can do or should do. I encourage pre-orders because I think there's a lot of things that you can do and there's a lot of good that can come of it. So let's dive into some of the finer points here that get into those. Um, so the author is leaning towards a pre-order period of 1 month for two reasons. It will allow notice and time for some of the planned promotional and marketing tasks. Absolutely correct. Having a pre-order up in advance means that as you're talking about it online, as you're planning out your launch day newsletter, having the link in advance where you can plug it in allows you to plan in advance. It allows you, when you have a sales link ready to go, it allows you to market and share in advance, but it also allows you to schedule out. If your launch is going to be September 9th and you are just so nervous that you're going to miss something, you're not going to have time to do everything, you're working that day, having a link in advance allows you to plan your launch email to your followers and include all the information, including the sales links. It allows you to plan social media in advance. It allows you to go to other authors and say, "Hey, would you be willing to share this?" Or when I share it, would you give it a like and just share it to your wall? It would mean a lot to me. It allows you to actually plan for your marketing and it allows for peace of mind in being able to schedule things. I like to say that if we did things well, my best launches, the ones where we planned well, we were ahead of the game, we feel like we have nothing to do on launch day. It almost feels wrong because it's so well planned, it's so well scheduled that all we have to do is sit back, relax, and kind of just hang out, check on social media. That's ideal. Doesn't always happen, but that's ideal. And the second point was to follow time or to allow time to fix any unseen problems on book sites like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org, rather than having it go live only to see something ugly. This is another reason that I really love a pre-order period. I cannot tell you how often it happens when you put up a book online, especially if you're using print on demand. I have a book, again, the author is on the call. I have a book that we recently put up for pre-order. Usually pre-orders get approved in a matter of like a day, 24, 48 hours for print on demand. It took over a week. It got flagged for something, ended up being no problem. It did get flagged and it for a week. It was stuck in limbo. Now, if we had pushed the publish button the day the book launched, 2 days before the book launched even, we would have had a launch date, promotions planned, social media, maybe we have book bloggers, whatever it may be, we would have had all that planned and no book to promote. That would have been really frustrating for everyone involved, and it would have meant probably a loss of sales for the author. I have seen things where a name shows up wrong, where I have actually seen where a book was listed. Now, this one was with a bigger publisher. It was not print on demand, but a bigger publisher. I have seen the wrong book cover show up with the title. These things happen. They're people feeding in information. We're failable. Systems are failable. So I think that the idea of putting things up, even if you don't plan a big pre-order period, if you're not going to do a ton of marketing, having a pre-order period where you can get some of your links set up and things at least a week in advance, if not two, I think would be the minimum I would suggest before you really launch publicly. If you can do it longer and you have promotional opportunities and things like that, I think that's fantastic. 2 weeks minimum would really be my recommendation to make sure the book is live. It's a linked. I've also seen that where ebook and a print book go up and they're not linked, and then you're sending people to two separate places and things like that. I have seen all sorts of things. So I do recommend at least a little period of time for a pre-order. And then there was more advice given though, and this is what I'm really gonna have a bone to pick here. There was more advice giving, and the author did say, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought they said that Amazon doesn't recognize pre-order periods and that Goodreads giveaways is for post-publication only. A couple of thoughts. Amazon does recognize pre-order periods. Now, what you will note is that Amazon for ebooks, if you're doing print on demand, there is no pre-order for a print book through Amazon. If you want to do a print book for pre-order and you're self-publishing print on demand, you have to go through Ingram Spark, who sends the book to Amazon. If you are a big publisher with different distribution, then you can put it up through your Amazon account. But for print on demand, there is no KDP Amazon pre-order for the print book. So you have to think outside the box and you have to do things a little bit differently for the print pre-order. For the ebook pre-order, they do allow this on KDP and you can schedule it out. Now, it absolutely counts. The important thing to note is that for things like number one new release, and those kind of tags that you get from Amazon, that starts when you put the book up, not when the book publishes. So if I put a book up today on June 20th and it doesn't publish till September 9th, then what happens is those number one new release opportunities hit on June 20th. So if I'm not prepared to market, if I don't think I'll have some pre-orders, I might miss those number one new release banners, which are fun, but also we know don't necessarily mean sales for the life. So to weigh your pros and cons, but they do count. All of your pre-orders on Amazon for ebooks tally up, and then on launch day, when your book comes out, they all kind of rack up at one time. They don't necessarily affect your ranking if you're looking for like a number one bestseller in category or something like that, which I'm going to dive deeper into in a minute because that's also changing. Um, and as far as Goodreads giveaways are not post-publication. Goodreads giveaways, the book has to be for sale, which can be pre-order. You can do a Goodreads giveaway on a pre-order. And that's what I recommend. Actually, that's where I find that Goodreads giveaways are actually worth it. I don't like doing Goodreads giveaways post publication. I find that they're not nearly as valuable because a Goodreads giveaway, the value to me is that pre-publication and that pre-order period when we do a giveaway. What happens is everyone who submits for that giveaway has to put the book in their to read shelf. That's part of entering the giveaway. So if I want to enter to win this book, I have to put it on my to read shelf. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because when you put a book on your to read shelf, depending on your settings on Goodreads, you're either getting notifications directly in app or you're getting emails. And of course, you can change your settings, but most people have notifications in app or by email. And every time a book that's on your to read shelf is published, Amazon and Goodreads, because Amazon owns Goodreads, Goodreads sends out an email to everyone or a notification to everyone on the list of who has that book on their to read shelf. And they say, hey, a book that you want to read is available today. And because Amazon owns Goodreads, they include an Amazon link to the book. That means that if you do a pre-publication giveaway and you have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people join that giveaway, then what happens on publication day is you are getting a email sent out to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people saying, hey, this book's available today. Here's the Amazon sales link. Does it always turn into sales? No. Does it sometimes turn into sales? Yes. Does it absolutely turn into more marketing because it means that your book is getting in front of that reader again? Yes, it does. That's the value. If I told you that I could find you 3,000 readers who were interested in your genre and who had seen your book before and said that they might read it, and I said, for $120, I will email all 3,000 of those readers personally and say, hey, this book's available and send them an Amazon sales link. Would you pay $120 for that? If you're giving away print books, let's say you're giving away 3 print books and it costs you 10 bucks, you know, for, so if we say it's $30 for the books and 119 for the giveaway, 150 all in. Would you say 3,000 emails delivered to inboxes of people interested in my book with an Amazon sales link? Yeah, you're probably gonna be like, this is a scam. It's too good to be true. But it's not too good to be true. It's a Goodreads giveaway. That is the value to me of a Goodreads giveaway. Now, note that if you are doing a post-publication giveaway, you don't get this notification. You can the good giveaway to put it on your to read shelf, but you're not getting that launch day email. And therefore, I don't find them nearly as valuable. They still give you exposure, which is, again, it's valuable, just not as valuable as a pre production giveaway. So, the advice on the Goodreads giveaway, I find to be terrible advice, personally. And I do not agree. It's not correct. And I wouldn't listen to that one. But now let's go a little bit more into the pre-order period pros and cons, because these are some great things to think about, but there's more to think about, right? One of the reasons that we do a pre-order period is if you're submitting for trade reviews, it helps to have your pre-order up. It gives you a official sales link to show reviewers this is a real book. It is being presented professionally. I will tell you that every single one, every time I've gotten a publisher's weekly review of a book, that was indie, that's self-published, print on demand, every single one that I've gotten submitting through Book Life and getting a publisher's weekly review had pre-order and the book was online. I can almost guarantee you that big reason for that is because having that book online at a pre-order period when we're submitting the book within the requirements, they do require 4 months in advance. So it's a long pre-order. It signals to the reviewers, we are prepared, we are professional. You can see the book online and you can see how we're presenting it. It gives them some cues that tell them that this book is probably more worth their time. And it also is giving them something to look at online. Also, if you're submitting for awards, it really helps to have that sales link. If you're submitting for festivals, helps to have the sale link. If it's your first book, you cannot start creating many of your author accounts and profiles until you have a live book link. So until you have a book live on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, something like that, you can't get a Goodreads author profile. You can have a reader profile, but not an author profile. You cannot sign up for BookBub as an author prior to that. You cannot sign up for Author Central and get your Amazon author profile until you have a book linked online on Amazon. This is why having a pre-order really does help. Those are some of the reasons. Other reasons are if you're trying to set up events, for example, if you're trying to set up a library event, a bookstore event, they want to see the book. They want to know it's real, it's coming out when it's coming out. They're looking for the book to be available on Ingram Wholesale. That means you've got to have the print pre-order set up through Ingram Spark if you're print on demand, or of course, if you have a more traditional press with distribution, they would get it into Ingram. They want to see the book. They want proof of life, and that's what you're giving them with a pre-order. So there's more reasons to do it. And then there's the marketing. We know that pre-orders of a book, they're actually down, not just for indies. Pre-orders for a book are down even for really popular authors. And the reason why is that we don't want to spend our money today for a product in September. We want to save our money, the pennies now, and then hopefully we have the money in September to buy something and we'll buy it then. We want instant gratification. We don't want to pay 6 months in advance and get something later because it's not instant. And we have become accustomed to a world where we order something on Amazon at 10 o'clock at night and we're frustrated when it's not here at 8 a.m. So pre-orders across the board are down. We are seeing that to entice pre-orders. We're seeing this a lot of in fantasy and romance, especially special editions, either signed copies, special editions with special print and edge printing and beautiful things. We're enticing people to pre-order by giving them special features and things. Now, there are some people, if you've built an audience, who will pre-order because they just know that you're you and they're going to love your books. If you have a series, for example, and they know they love the first three books in the series, they're probably more likely to pre-order book four. But if you're on Kindle Unlimited, they're not. They're going to wait until the book comes out on Kindle Unlimited rather than pre-ordering it. So there's a lot that goes into pre-orders. So when we think about pre-orders, it's not so much about the sales because sales for authors that are newer, sales for authors that are maybe not as prolific or haven't built a huge audience, the sales aren't going to be it. I don't actually recommend running ads to your sales page until the book is like a couple days away because you're going to send traffic. It's not going to convert, and that's actually going to hurt your algorithms long term, both with your ads and on your sales page on Amazon. But what it does give you the opportunity to do is to talk about it. It gives you the opportunity that when you're asking people to review your book, you have the links to send them. It gives you the opportunity to set up promotions and events and submit for reviews. So there is a lot of value. Time range depends on what you're doing with that time. If you're submitting for professional trade reviews, festivals, events, like at a bookstore, you probably need that pre-order period to be 3 to 4 months long. If you, however, are just doing, more of a digital launch, you're not doing events, you're not submitting for some of those trade reviews, or you're going with paid reviews, then you don't necessarily need 3 to 4 months. You can do it in, a month. 2 weeks again would be my kind of minimum recommendation. It's not necessarily about the sales. It's about what you're doing with the time and the platforms that make it so that sales can happen on launch day. And that's the biggest difference. It's also kind of more of a guarantee the book's coming out on that day. It allows you to plan proof of concept, proof of life when you're asking other people to do that. So that's really important. Now, let's talk more about the Amazon algorithms, though, because this is all over. If you have not seen the Sim 5 newsletters this week in every author group you're in, then I want to know where you're at because I've seen, seen it everywhere. We talked about this last week about how Amazon's change of the bestseller list and category list is really changing how some people are doing things. So, to recap, if you weren't here, the bestseller list on Amazon, it used to update every hour. They have quietly recently updated their process to on their help page. They now say it will be updated at least once a day. It can be more than that, but at least once a day. And they will update their bestseller list once a day, but it will not necessarily take effect. It may take 2 to 3 days to show, meaning I could sell 1,000 copies of a book today and they'll take it into account. My ranking on Amazon may not change until tomorrow. And then it could take 2 to 3 days to actually show up on the Amazon sales platform on the screen where I want to take a screenshot. So my efforts of today could not actually show up until, gosh, Monday. It could take a while. And that is changing how a lot of people, especially indies, have been marketing because a lot of the marketing has been focused on how can I get into the most niche categories that let me rank the quickest and the best to get that number one orange banner because we have idolized this number one orange banner, even though it means that you're selling books in the hour, not in the lifetime. And that's what we've really seen prioritized and idolized as far as, oh, become a number one bestseller. Here's a bestseller campaign and all of these things because it's fun. It feels good and it's validating. Amazon in particular has been criticized for a really long time for how easy it is to become an Amazon bestseller. Like it's not even a lot of times it's like, yeah, we don't really mention that you're an Amazon bestseller unless it's to people who, don't know how easy it can be, or it's a really big category, or it's Amazon number one bestseller overall. It really just depends. But Amazon has really been criticized for a long time for how easy it is to make bestseller. And these algorithms are changing that because not only is it a delay where now they're not doing it hourly, because a lot of these programs would push out a discount book all in the same hour. They would really push for, everyone going at 9 a.m. Eastern, getting those sales, getting that banner, which was only lasting for an hour, and then you're a bestseller for life. Um, and now, because these sales are being updated at least daily, it's taking longer. It's taking a longer sales trajectory into account. And on top of that, it's not actually showing up on the page for 2 to 3 days. There's this delayed gratification. And there's an algorithm change that is prioritizing long term and long tail sales over these big spikes. Because if we do a promotion, an ebook promotion, discount promotion, we put it up in a bunch of places for 99 cents for a day, our sales go like this. And then they typically go like this. Sometimes they go like this, and then they go that, and it'll kind of move. Um, but it's usually a quick hit and then it's done. And Amazon algorithms are now prioritizing books that have sold consistently. So that book that's been selling 3 copies a day for 2 years, their algorithms and their rankings are probably going to be better than the book that didn't sell for years and then had a 99-cent promo and, sold a bunch of copies in one day and then didn't sell anything again. We are looking more at a whole look of book sales long term. I, for one, think that this can be a good thing. It's hard to swallow right now. It's frustrating for people who really have looked for that bestseller ranking, who have looked for some of that. But I will tell you that some of the books that I work with that have sold the most consistently, that have made the most money, that have actually sold more copies in their lifetime, have never gotten that beautiful orange banner. Never once. I was looking at a book the other day, um, and we looked at this book. I think the book in its lifetime, which has been 4 years, I think it's been 4 years. It had something, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but it had something like 3.6 million page reads on Kindle Unlimited and 2,600 paid sales. In 4 years. So that's a lot of books. That's almost a million page reads per year on just this one book. This book has never hit an Amazon bestseller list, but it's sold really consistently and it's done really well. So that is what Amazon's now prioritizing, which makes it harder to play the game. Now we have to look at how this shifts algorithms because algorithms, which is kind of the I'm going to simplify this massively. All of you tech people, just be nice to me. Algorithms are essentially the trends that happen in the background in computer systems, on search features, on sales systems like Amazon. It's the trends that happen in the background, and it's kind of the little bots doing their work that's saying, oh, this book is popular. You should show this more. This should get more attention because it's selling. The algorithms on Amazon are designed for two reasons. Number one, they're designed to help people find what they want. Because Amazon knows that the quicker they can get you what you're looking for, the more likely you are to buy it on their platform. The second thing that it is designed to do is to show popular products because they know that if something's currently trending and selling and popular, it's more likely to continue selling. Sales beget sales. And so these algorithms are trained to do that. And one of the ways that authors were using these algorithms was to hit bestseller lists because when you rank high in a category, you catch the algorithm and your books start getting more organic attention. Your ads work better. Sales beget sales. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And we're using these kind of tricks of getting to the bestseller list to do that. Now Amazon's kind of going, let's actually not prioritize those quick hits. Let's prioritize consistent sales and advertising. And that's going to change how people play the game. And I do think it will become harder for indies. Indies have learned how to sell books the indie way. And that is the old way that Amazon's no longer prioritizing. Traditionally published books have sold, that they just never quite picked up on the new way of indies, let's be honest. They have sold kind of, they do a launch, that's true, but then they kind of just keep on selling books till they get a new book out. And that's what I think the algorithms are going back to, where that consistency of sales, having a good foundation, having a good amount of sales. But what does this mean for indies now? Well, it means that having a pre-order and having some books kind of ready to go, but also selling the first month or two is going to be pivotal. It will no longer be okay to just sell the first day or two your book launches. The first month or two are going to matter. Getting reviews quickly, getting your ads up quickly, and actually running those ads to get people over to your sales page for the first month or two, not just the first day of launch, is going to become more and more important, I think. And long tail marketing. What can we put in place to market our books for days and days to come? It's why I love Facebook ads because I can set up a Facebook ad. And once I've got that Facebook ad working, I can leave that thing for 2 weeks to a month and not even check it. Just check in it, see if it's doing well. If it is, then we just keep it going. Amazon ads, same way. They can take some more fiddling, just depending. But once you get a really good Amazon ad, you can leave it running for a while. So it's prioritizing that consistency over those little pushes. And there's a question in the chat. Does Amazon notify you when you earn a bestseller status? And the answer is no, it does not. It's like you just got to catch it out on the wild, which also makes it harder because that's what authors were doing. I have promo today. I'm going to check it every hour. And when it dates, then I'm going to, screenshot it. Well, now you have promo day or you're doing a launch. You got to check it for the whole week to see if you can catch it. So no, they don't notify you. Now with the ranking updates, that may mean that if you do hit bestseller, that ranking tag may stay on your page longer. Instead of an hour, maybe it stays all day or for 12 hours. So that's kind of cool, but they don't notify you. We often say you just kind of see it out in the wild. And Kevin's saying this is a timely discussion for me because I'm planning to do a KDP promotion. Based on the changes you have mentioned, do you think it's a worthwhile to do a KDP promotion? I've done them before. I still think ebook promotions are gold. I still think there's a lot of value in ebook promotions. I've done some in the last week. I actually had a client who had a book club this week. It's been a really long week. It was like 2 days ago when they had their book club. It was on the 17th. And it still did beautifully. But what I'm finding is instead of doing, the kind of old way, I call it old when it was like 2 weeks ago, but you get me. Um, the way that we were doing it is that we would often do a discount or a free ebook promotion, and we would put the book in 3 or 4 newsletters, discount newsletters like BookBub, Fussy Librarian, Free Booksy, Book Doggy, Book Gorilla. There's so many of them. And we put our book in 3 to 4 of them in one day. We were trying to get all of these pushed out in one day to hit ranks and algorithm. Now, rather than doing one day, what we're finding is that it is better to stagger them. To instead of doing 4 newsletters on one day, do 4 newsletters in 4 days. You do one a day. You're getting that longer tail algorithm. Also, run ads. Run ads not only for the promotion period, but run them for the week or two after. And that may mean instead of doing a 1 day discount day, maybe you're doing a discount for a week, 2 weeks. It's just kind of changing the game. The same things generally are working. We have to change how we apply them. And this has happened before. I know there's a lot of talk about it now. And what are we going to do? And Amazon's changing, and this is going to ruin everyone's sales. But this has happened before, and we all adapted then, and we're going to adapt now. It's simply learning the new rules. Made more difficult because Amazon doesn't really tell you their rules. They kind of give you some vague information like, yeah, we're gonna change it. Categories are gonna be updated at least once a day. They'll show up like 2 to 3 days later. And then from there, people like myself, people in the industry, authors, we're going and going, oh gosh, what do we do? And then we're testing a bunch of things and we're seeing what works and doesn't work. And then we're drawing our conclusions from that. That's what's happening. We're in that period of research and figuring out what works again. This will not tank indie authors. It's not going to keep authors from selling books. I have some authors having their best months this month. Um, Books that have been selling consistently and authors who have learned how to market their books consistently. And I've been on my soapbox before talking about consistency and the work long term to win over everything. And Amazon is just becoming more of a traditional playing field compared to what they were before, which was really kind of their own jungle. And they are starting their platform and algorithms for books is starting to act a little bit more like other platforms. For example, Barnes and Noble bestseller list. If your book is not Kindle exclusive and you're doing ebook promotion, you're probably ranking over on the Barnes and Noble bestseller list. By the way, they don't update theirs every hour. They update them at least once a day. Most of the time I notice it every like 4 hours, I think. You can grab your bestseller badge over there too. So it definitely makes a difference. So I think that we're not ruining. Books are still selling. Like if we look at the stats, books are still selling. Romance and dark fantasy actually are so massively selling that I can't even remember the stat, but they made a book sales comparison of like dark romance and romance in general and fantasy from 4 years ago to today, and it's just growing every year massively. We have a lot of books that are still selling. We don't have less readers because Amazon changed their algorithm. We simply have different ways of selling our books. Let's see. Yes, and Cheryl's saying she recently had a BookBub promotion, and this is a nonfiction kind of self-help book in the health space, and she had a BookBub promotion, and with virtually no promotion outside of just the BookBub, sold 350 copies, which is huge for this book, who that really has more of a niche audience. And so again, books are still selling, promotion tools are still working. um, don't let some talk in the author group scare you off. It's not that nothing's working, it's that we have to adapt and change. And you're actively doing that. You're actively coming onto Free Advice Friday, asking questions, learning. And that's what's going to make the difference between people who continue to sell books and people that don't. But I've said for a long time that the Amazon category game and gaming the system, slowly Amazon has really been putting tighter regulations on that. I mean, first they started with, hey, you can't have a ebook in a print book category and then, rise to the top because your ebook is selling more copies than most print books are. Or, you can't, your book is in a category that has nothing to do with it. Great, you're number one bestseller, but it's not actually in the category it should be. You can't do that. They've been slowly trying to put more regulations on this and keeping people from gaming the system and marketing companies from earning money off of shady practices for a really long time. This is just the next step. Yeah. The five best promo sites that I see at the moment for ebook sales, that's a good question. I am still seeing a lot of success. Obviously, BookBub, if you can get a feature deal, BookBub is not what it was 5 years ago, but BookBub is still great. Recommend that. Highly recommend Hello Books if you're doing a free book. Free Booksy or Bargain Booksy. I will say we're seeing free books and 99-cent book deals are doing the absolute best unless you're on BookBub. I did a promotion not too long ago on a $1.99 book and got like 10 sales. It was terrible. Reran that book at 99 cents and got several hundred sales. So free and 99 cents seem to be king unless you're on a platform like BookBub. Um, so Fuzzy Librarian is still working well for me. And then there's a lot of genre specific lists. So if you are in romance, there are a bunch of lists that are just for romance. If you're mystery, there are lists just for mystery. I recommend that you really deep dive into your genre and see if you can find lists specific to that. Even if their audience is smaller, usually it's more hyper targeted to what you're writing. I find that to be very helpful. And typically those are actually less expensive than some of the other promo sites. So I think that's important. That's absolutely helpful. All right. So I think that I told you I had a bone to pick, and I told you I was going to get on my little soapbox for a minute. So thank you for sticking with me. I just think I've seen some really good advice around the changes at Amazon, and I've seen some really clickbait headline, terrible, frighten everybody kind of stuff. And I know why people in the industry do that because it makes them the person talking about things. But I think we really have to just look to consistencies, look to truth. Don't don't ride that wave of panic. If something's not working, adjust. What's true for one person will not be true for another in book marketing. And we promise you, same number of customers are out there today as were 2 weeks ago. Books are still selling today, just like they were 2 weeks ago. They're just selling differently, and we have to kind of follow that. I mean, that's par for the course for anything in life. So I think that's really important. Is Hello Books good for nonfiction? Hello Books, I think, is mostly geared towards fiction. They do, I believe, have a nonfiction list. That was started by Mark Dawson. I believe it in the beginning they only did free books, and I'm not sure if that changed, but I know it's mostly for free books. So that's something to consider. If you're doing lit RPG, one of the only lists I found with a lit RPG specific list is over on Written Word Media. So highly recommend that if you're in lit RPG. So, all right. As far as other things happening in the industry, a lot's going on with AI. We took a little break because AI is just constantly in there. Is AI ruining our lives? Is AI the best things ever? Lots of interviews coming out saying that every major publisher is using AI in some form for marketing, for process, if not in writing. I'm not getting into that. We've talked about it before. We do know that Disney and I think it's Marvel are in a lawsuit with Midjourney, which I think I talked to you all about last week. Because if you look at the pictures of the things that came out of Midjourney and how closely they resemble some Disney characters, I mean, it literally looks like the same thing. And so as we introduce new things and as AI develops, we know AI doesn't truly have a brain. It doesn't truly learn. It's not original. It's learning from things. And sometimes it copies things exactly. It's like when I thought I could draw after, tracing the outline from a coloring book. It's not so much true. So we're seeing a lot of that in the industry. Summer tends to be kind of a slow spot for publishing, to be honest. So I'm curious to see how this summer shakes out if we're just going to keep seeing a lot of things happening in AI, because I don't think the tech industry kind of slows down in the summer, but publishing does. So I'll be curious to see how that works out. For the most part, then we're going on as we have been. So I'll keep you guys updated. I will be back next Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. If you have questions, email them over to info@newshelves.com. I save those up and I answer them on Friday. Of course, you can always come live, newshelves.com/FAF. Join us live and ask your questions. So thank you for being here. It's been great. I'll see you next week and have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Bye.